The first whispers of dread echoed through the walls of Castle Keep long before it became a museum. Long before the tourists came to marvel at its ancient stones and the imposing silhouette it cast over the River Tyne. It all began on the very ground where the Romans had once stood, watching over their empire and laying the foundations of what would become the heart of Newcastle. In 1080, when William the Conqueror's eldest son, Robert Curthose, decided to build a castle, it was more than just a structure of stone. It was a symbol of power, of conquest, and of the centuries of bloodshed that would define the land. The keep towered over the river, a silent sentinel, guarding secrets that no one could fathom at the time. As centuries passed, the castle saw countless battles and betrayals. But it wasn't the clang of swords or the cries of war that left the deepest marks on Castle Keep. No, it was the unnatural stillness, the way the very air seemed to thicken, that made the place feel alive with something far darker. By the 1800s, the building had fallen into disrepair. The once proud fortress had begun to crumble under the weight of history. Yet, its very decay seemed to give rise to something else, something far more sinister. Restoration efforts in the 1800s and later in the 1970s breathed new life into the castle. But it was not just the stonework that had been restored. Something more intangible had also returned. Visitors began to notice things, strange, inexplicable things. The feeling of being watched, the sensation of cold breath brushing the back of their necks, the eerie sounds of footsteps echoing in empty halls. The castle seemed to breathe with its own pulse, each heartbeat a reminder that its past was far from forgotten. The first thing most visitors to Castle Keep notice are the staircases. From the king's chambers to the Norman chapel, these winding steps lead to rooms filled with history. But there's something wrong with them, something that doesn't quite add up. Some staircases end abruptly, leading nowhere but the cold stone walls of the keep. Others seem to stretch on endlessly, beckoning visitors deeper into the bowels of the castle, only to end in nothing but silence. As curious tourists walk to the castle, they're often drawn to these staircases, unsure why they feel compelled to ascend, only to find themselves standing before dead ends. Some have tried to chart the paths, mapping out the route of stairs, but the castle seems to shift its own geography as if mocking their efforts. One staircase, in particular, leads to a small door that opens into a dark hallway, but when one steps inside, they feel as though the walls close in on them. The chill in the air grows unbearable, and the darkness feels suffocating. Those who venture too far into the hall say they hear faint whispers calling their name, soft and urgent, as if urging them to leave. But when they turn to flee, the hallway seems to stretch impossibly long, and the exit remains just out of reach. There is no explanation for the staircases that lead nowhere. Some claim the castle is haunted by lost souls. Others say it is the restless spirits of the past, trapped between worlds. But all agree on one thing. Castle Keep is alive with something that doesn't want to be found. The most famous or infamous ghost of Castle Keep is that of the Poppy Girl, a local woman who once sold poppies at the castle. She became a regular presence at the keep. No one knew her name, but she was known to visit the castle every day, wandering to the halls with a basket of vibrant red poppies. It was said that her flowers brought a sense of peace to the otherwise cold and imposing castle. Visitors would pause in their explorations to buy a poppy, as if paying respects to the memory of the castle's lost history. But one fateful day, the Poppy Girl did not return. Her usual spot in the courtyard remained empty. Rumors began to spread, rumors of a brutal murder, one that had taken place in the shadows of the castle walls. It was said that the girl had been killed, her life snuffed out in a vicious act that left no trace of the perpetrator. No one knew who had done it, and no one could explain why. The only thing the townsfolk knew for sure was that the Poppy Girl was gone, and her absence left a hollow space in the hearts of those who had once known her. The castle, too, seemed emptier without her. However, some said that the girl's spirit had not left. They claimed that on quiet nights, when the moon was high and the wind whispered through the cracks in the castle walls, they could see her drifting through the halls, her pale face glowing faintly in the darkness. She was no longer the sweet, kind woman who had sold flowers, but a ghostly figure, a figure full of sorrow and anger, her spirit forever tied to the castle where she met her untimely end. Her ghost was said to appear by the staircases, in the shadowy corridors, and by the windows where the wind moaned through the cracks. Visitors would catch glimpses of her as she passed by, her form half-transparent, a faint flicker of red poppies in her hand. Those who have seen her speak of an overwhelming sense of grief, the feeling that she is still trapped, still searching for justice, still mourning her violent death. Strange occurrences have been reported at Castle Keep for centuries. The first documented account of paranormal activity came from the castle's restoration efforts in the 1800s. Workers, who were tasked with repairing the keep's decaying walls, claimed to hear footsteps echoing in empty hallways. Others reported seeing fleeting shadows dart across the walls, disappearing when they turned to look. As the years passed, the stories grew. Visitors to the museum began to report unusual lights flickering in the darkened rooms, and sudden drops in temperature that would leave them shivering despite the summer heat. Some even claimed to have seen objects move on their own. A book falling from a shelf, a chair rocking by itself. One of the most chilling accounts came from a group of paranormal investigators who visited the castle in the 1990s. Equipped with cameras and EMF detectors, they spent the night in the keep, hoping to capture evidence of the supernatural. What they captured, however, was far more than they had expected. In the king's chambers, the investigators recorded strange fluctuations in electromagnetic fields, followed by the sound of footsteps, as though someone or something was pacing back and forth across the room. The temperature dropped suddenly, the air growing cold and heavy. And then, in the stillness of night, a voice, a soft, disembodied whisper, echoed through the room, though no one was there. The investigators left Castle Keep with a sense of unease, their minds filled with questions that would never be answered. Was it the restless spirit of the Poppy Girl, or something else entirely? As the years went by, more and more visitors to Castle Keep reported strange sensations. A shadowy figure, tall and imposing, would appear in a corner of their vision. It would vanish when they turned to look directly, but the feeling of being watched remained. Some believed it was the ghost of the castle's original builders, the soldiers who had once walked the halls, their faces forever lost time. Others thought it was the spirit of a forgotten king or queen, forever guarding the halls of the keep. But as the number of sightings grew, so did the mystery. The Poppy Girl's ghost, the strange apparitions, the unexplained sounds, they all pointed to something deeper, something darker buried within the castle's history. What had happened in those walls? What secrets were the stones hiding? The more people explored the castle, the more questions arose. And as long as the keep stood, those questions would remain unanswered, leaving the past to haunt the present. Today, Castle Keep is a museum, a place of history and heritage. It welcomes visitors from around the world, each eager to learn about the castle's rich past. Yet, despite the restoration, despite the museums and guides, there's an undeniable sense of foreboding that clings to the stone walls. The ghosts of the past refuse to let go. The Poppy Girl's spirit still lingers in the shadows, her cries for justice unheard, her figure drifting silently through the halls. The staircases that lead nowhere, the whispers in the dark, the strange sensations, they're all reminders that Castle Keep is far more than just a museum. It is a place where the past refuses to stay buried, and the dead continue to walk among the living. Castle Keep is haunted, and the ghosts that reside there are not content to simply fade away. They remain waiting, watching, forever tied to the stone and mortar of the keep.